Zira stood near the edge of the balcony, staring at the 3 moons above her planet. Their pale blue light touched her silver skin, but she felt no warmth. Her fingers were shaking, and in her hand was a glowing contract disc. A marriage contract. Couldn't believe it. Her father had sold her. Not to an alien lord from another noble family, but to a human dot. She turned around and stormed into the room. "You signed it without asking me!" she shouted. "Do I mean nothing to you?" Her father, Lord Varric, looked old and tired. His eyes were heavy, filled with shame. "Zira, we had no choice. The debt was too large. They were going to take our lands, our name. So you gave them me?" Zira's voice cracked. "You gave your daughter to a human to save your pride?" Lord Varric didn't reply. "He?" "Just look down." Zira threw the contract disc across the room. It hit the wall, flickered, and fell. She stepped closer, voice lower but sharper. "Do you know what humans did during the resource wars? Do you know how many of our kind they killed? It's not the same anymore," her father said quietly. "There is peace now, treaties, trade, marriages for unity. But not love." She spat. Silence. Zira walked out, heart pounding. Her claws retracted, her breath short. She didn't care about the family's debt. She didn't care about the house or titles. But she hated being forced, and most of all, she hated being sent away like property. 2 days later, a large silver transport ship hovered over her estate. Zira stood at the gates, her long dark robe flowing behind her. Her travel bag was small, just the essentials. She would not act weak in front of them. The human escort, a female soldier in dark armor, stepped forward. "Zira Varric, welcome. The groom is waiting on Earth." Zira narrowed her eyes. "Tell him not to expect a happy bride." The soldier gave a small, cold smile. He didn't ask for one. The journey to Earth took 6 hours through a hyperspace tunnel. Zira didn't speak. She didn't sleep. She just watched the stars outside the ship window, wondering how her life had changed so quickly. When the ship entered Earth's orbit, the view was surprising. The planet looked green, alive, not the gray, war-torn world she had imagined. The ship landed on a high platform above a huge city, lights, towers, and flying vehicles everywhere. Earth's capital. As she stepped down the ramp, the oxygen mask clicked into place. She could breathe the air now, but it still felt foreign. And then she saw him, Captain Jace Morgan, tall, broad shoulders, short dark hair. A scar ran down the left side of his face, but his blue eyes were calm, not cold, not cruel. He didn't smile, but he didn't look angry either. Zira expected arrogance, disgust, mockery. Instead, he stepped forward and said, "Welcome. I know this is not what you wanted." She folded her arms. "You have no idea what I wanted," Jace nodded. "Probably not. But I want you to know something. I didn't ask for this marriage either." Zira blinked. That surprised her. "I agreed because someone has to show our people that we can trust each other," Jace continued. "But if you don't want this, I won't stop you. You're free to leave any time." Zira looked at him closely. His voice was real. Not soft. Not fake, just honest. "Free to leave?" She didn't reply. Her pride wouldn't let her thank him. Instead, she said coldly, "Don't think this kindness makes you special." Jace gave a small shrug. "Didn't say it did." A silence passed between them. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hateful either. The soldier beside him gestured toward a black hovercar. "Shall we take you to your new home, ma'am?" Zira stared at the car, then back at Jace. She didn't want to go. But she didn't want to run either. So she said, "Fine, let's get this over with." Inside the car, she sat stiffly beside Jace. The city lights passed quickly outside. Her eyes stayed forward, but deep inside something strange was growing. Not love. Not yet, but curiosity. Why would a human officer offer her freedom? Why would he agree to marry someone he didn't know? And most of all, what was he hiding? Because no one agrees to a political marriage for peace, unless they have a reason, and she would find out what that reason was, even if it meant breaking his heart before he could touch hers. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. Zira didn't move. She stood at the entrance of her new home, a tall, clean steel and glass structure overlooking the clouds of Earth's capital. She had seen many cities across the galaxy, but nothing like this. It was beautiful. And cold, like him, Captain Jace Morgan. He stood a few steps ahead of her, his back straight, hands behind him like a soldier on duty. He didn't speak. He was letting her take it all in, the silent welcome. The strange planet, the marriage that wasn't really a marriage. Zira stepped inside slowly, her boots echoing on the marble floor. Everything was spotless. Perfect, too perfect. "Do you live alone?" she asked. "Yes." "No family?" "None." "Lucky," she muttered under her breath. Jace raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He walked to a panel on the wall and tapped it. A soft hum filled the room as the walls shifted slightly. Windows turned transparent, showing the full view of the city, floating cars, golden lights and towers that reached the sky. "You can have the guest wing," Jace said. "It's private." "You don't need to see me if you don't want to." Zira stared at him. "You talk like we're roommates." He turned to face her. "Aren't we?" His voice was calm, but there was something beneath it. A weight. A pain he didn't show. She didn't answer. Later that night, Zira wandered the halls. The house was quiet, too quiet. Back home, there was always noise, servants talking, machines humming, her brother arguing with her father. Here, there was only silence. And one human officer behind a locked door. She passed by a room with dim light seeping through the crack. The door was slightly open. Curious, she peeked inside. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a war room. Screens floated in the air, showing maps, classified files, photos of alien territories, and one image paused in the center, her face, her breath caught. Why was he studying her? Suddenly, a voice behind her. "You shouldn't be here." Zira jumped and turned. Jace stood in the hallway, his eyes unreadable. "I wasn't," she began, but he cut her off. "I know you don't trust me." "That's fine, but if you think I brought you here to spy on you, you're wrong." "Then why is my face on your screen?" He stepped into the room and tapped the screen. The image vanished. "Because I wanted to know who I was being forced to marry." Zira crossed her arms. "And what did you find?" Jace looked at her, really looked. "That you're proud, stubborn, smart, dangerous, and trapped." Zira was silent. She had expected lies. She had expected control, but this man spoke like he had nothing to hide. That made her nervous. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "I know what it feels like," he said. She turned slowly. "What?" "To be used as a piece in someone else's game," he said. "I was 19 when they sent me to fight the war of void sectors. Half my unit died. I didn't even know why we were fighting." Zira frowned. "And now you wear their uniform." "I wear it," he said, "so I can protect people who don't get a choice." For a moment she saw something in his eyes. Pain, buried deep, regret, but not weakness, and not lies. She didn't like that. "Don't try to make me feel sorry for you," she said quickly. "I don't care about your past." "I know," he replied. Zira left the room, her heart beating faster. Later that night, she stood on the balcony of her room, staring at the stars. She didn't know why she felt so strange. She didn't trust him. She barely knew him, but he wasn't what she expected. He hadn't touched her, hadn't tried to own her, hadn't even asked her to stay. Why would a powerful man agree to marry a stranger and then offer her freedom? It didn't make sense, and things that didn't make sense were dangerous. She had to stay sharp. This house was a trap. The kindness, a trick. The freedom, an illusion. She repeated that in her mind like a shield, but deep down a small voice whispered something else. "He's not the monster you were expecting." And that was the scariest part of all. Zira didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, watching the stars shift across the Earth's sky, slower, colder than the skies of her homeworld. Something was wrong. Jace Morgan had been too kind, too quiet, too controlled. Men like him didn't agree to forced marriages without a reason. Not even for peace, especially not with someone like her, a daughter of a fallen house, known more for her attitude than her diplomacy. No, she thought. He knows something. And tonight she would find out what. At 3:17 local Earth time. The house systems dimmed to night mode. She crept barefoot through the hallway, silent as a shadow, her robe wrapped tightly around her. Her claws were tucked, but her senses were sharp. The war room door was locked out, of course it was, but locks were only puzzles. And Zira loved solving puzzles. She pulled a tiny blade from her sleeve, not for fighting, but for hacking. Within seconds, the door gave. A soft click. Inside, the room glowed blue. Screen slept, waiting for a command. She touched the interface, and the system came alive, showing mission files, security feeds, interstellar reports. And then she found it. A file with her name. Z. Varric, Eyes Only Earth Military Command Her. Breath stopped. She tapped it open. The screen showed a secret document. A deal between Earth and her own father, not just for marriage, but for political access to her planet's northern mining zones. Jace wasn't just her husband. He was her key. The file also included her psychological profile. Prideful, sharp, emotional, but loyal once bonded. Her chest tightened. She wasn't a bride. She was a calculated risk. Looking for something? The voice came from behind her. Zira? Froze. She turned slowly. Jace stood at the doorway, barefoot, wearing only a plain black shirt, eyes unreadable. I could ask you the same, she said, hiding her panic. Jace walked in and tapped the screen. The document closed. Locked again? Those files are protected for a reason. She stared at him. Because they hide the truth? He sighed. Because they protect people. Me? She asked. Or the people who sold me like a piece of land? He didn't answer. Right away, instead he said quietly, Do you think I don't hate this too? Zira stepped closer. Then why did you agree? Why say yes to marrying a stranger from a ruined house? Jace looked at her, and for once his eyes weren't calm, they were tired. I agreed. He said slowly, because I made a mistake. 5 years ago, one that cost people their lives. I thought, if I did this, maybe I could fix something. Zira blinked. That she hadn't expected. What mistake? He shook his head. Not tonight, she frowned. You hide secrets like they're medals, and you carry anger like a sword. They stood in silence, the room humming around them. Finally, Jay said, The marriage deal wasn't just about your family's debt. You're right, there was more. Then why didn't you tell me? Would you have listened? Zira looked down. Maybe not, but, Jace continued, I never lied about this. You're free. I won't use you. I won't control you. If you want to leave, say the word. She stared at him. She saw no lies in his face, only weight and regret, but regret for what? Later that night, Zira sat on her bed, staring at the small hologram of her mother, a recording from years ago. Before the war took her. Her mother had said, Sometimes we make choices not because they are right, but because we have no better ones. Maybe that was what Jace had done, and maybe she wasn't the only one trapped in a deal she didn't choose. But there was one thing she now knew for sure. Someone on Earth wanted her here for a reason. And it wasn't just Jace. Someone else was watching her. And they were waiting for what? She didn't know yet, but she was going to find out. Before they made their next move, Zira hit the ground hard, shoulder first. Breath knocked out of her chest. Sparks flew above her as plasma fire ripped through the air. Scorching the steel wall she had been standing next to just seconds ago, she rolled. Claws out, instincts sharp, mind racing. They were trying to kill her. This wasn't a simulation. This wasn't a mistake. This was a real attack. Just 1 hour earlier, she had been walking through the lower district of Earth's capital, dressed in a long gray cloak, trying to blend in. Jace had sent a bodyguard droid to follow her, but she disabled it in seconds. She needed space. She needed to think. She was tired of marble floors and fake smiles, of quiet men and hidden files, of being called Peace Bride by strangers who didn't even look her in the eyes. But now she wished she hadn't come. Alone, because the moment she passed the abandoned market street, the lights went out. Then came the whispering static in her ear. Then came the shadows, 3 figures, tall and fast, not human, not military. Something else. They didn't speak. They just attacked. Zira ducked behind a broken vehicle. Breathing hard, her right arm burned, plasma had grazed her skin. She had no weapons, no communicator, no backup. Then she heard it, a footstep behind her. She spun around, ready to strike, but a hand grabbed her wrist, strong, firm, familiar. Down. Jace's voice snapped. A moment later, a plasma bolt tore through the space where her head had been. He pushed her flat, then fired his own weapon, sharp, precise. Two of the attackers fell instantly. The third tried to run. Jace chased him down like a machine, tackled him, slammed him against the wall. Zira watched, heart thudding, blood hot. In her ears, when she walked over, Jace had the attacker pinned. The mask fell off. Zira's eyes widened. He wasn't human. He was from her home planet. A member of the dissenter clans, the ones who had always opposed the peace treaties. Her voice was cold. "You sent men to kill me? Why?" the alien sneered. "You're a traitor." Sleeping next to the enemy. Zira's fist clenched. "This marriage wasn't my choice." "Doesn't matter," the man hissed. "You're the symbol now. If you live, others will follow." He grinned with bloodied teeth. "But if you die—" Jace's hand tightened around the man's collar. "We're done here," a drone descended from above, beaming light over the scene. Earth security had arrived. As the attacker was dragged away, he looked at Zira and whispered, "He can't protect you forever." Later that night, Zira sat on the edge of her bed, wrapped in silence. Her arm bandaged, her thoughts loud. Jace stood in the doorway. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "You followed me? I always do." She looked up, surprised. "You?" "Disable my droids," he said, "but I don't trust the streets." "Especially not now." Zira's voice was quiet. "They were from my planet. I know, they want me dead." Jace didn't reply. She stood up and walked over to him. Her voice was low, angry, but not at him, at the world. "I thought marrying a human would be my punishment. Now it's my protection." Jace looked into her eyes. "This marriage isn't a shield. It's a target." Zira stared back. "Then why are you still here?" He didn't move. "Because you're still here." Her breath caught. She turned away quickly. She couldn't let him see the fear in her eyes, the strange heat in her chest. "I'm not weak," she said. No, I don't need saving." "I know." Silence again, but this time it felt different. Thicker. Rele whispered, "You should have let me die. It would have ended this mess." Jace's voice was calm, but sharp. "Don't ever say that." She turned to him. "Why not?" "Because I didn't marry a ghost," he said. "I married you." Their eyes locked for the first time. No lies, no coldness, no politics. Just two people caught in a storm they didn't start, but might have to finish together. The locked door wasn't supposed to be there. Zira had lived in Jace's house for almost 2 weeks. She had memorized every hallway, every room, every pattern in the glass walls. But tonight, while walking past the far west corridor, she saw it, a thin silver panel embedded in the wall. Almost invisible, almost. Her claws brushed against it. It flickered, and then it opened. Behind it, a narrow staircase. Going downward. She should have walked away. But something in her bones, some instinct, older than fear, pulled her in. The air below was colder. The walls were made of old steel, scratched and stained. Not like the polished upper levels of the house. This was older, hidden, forgotten. Zira descended slowly, careful not to make a sound. At the bottom, she found a small, sealed room. It looked like a vault, but inside weren't gold or weapons. Inside were memories. Old Earth military crates, dusty uniforms, broken drones, a hollow projector covered in cloth. And one metal box, marked with both Earth Military Command and her family's crest. She froze. Her family symbol burned onto an Earth weapons supply box. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were files, letters, old footage. One file was labeled Project Starfall, Classified, Joint Operation, Varric House. She loaded the footage. The screen lit up with a young Jace, 20, maybe younger, in full armor, speaking into a helmet. "Cam, operation started. Target secured. Alien allies late. We were promised backup from House Varric. Still no sign. My men are dying." The screen flashed, explosions, screams, then darkness. Ziraya's mouth went dry. Her family had promised support, and then abandoned the mission. Because of that, Jace's team was left to die. She closed the file with shaking fingers. Was this the mistake he had spoken of, and why had her father never told her? You shouldn't be here, Ziraya turned. Jace was standing at the doorway. He looked tired, older. His eyes weren't angry, just hollow. You knew, she whispered. You knew my family betrayed your mission, he nodded once. And you still married me? Jace walked into the room and sat beside the projector. It wasn't your fault. You were a child when it happened. That doesn't change what they did. No, he said. It doesn't. Ziraya stared at him. Then why not tell me? Jace looked at the flickering screen. Because I wanted to see who you really were, without the weight of their sins. Her chest ached. He could have hated her, but he hadn't. Instead, he had saved her life. Protected her. Trusted her. I don't understand you, she said. You're not supposed to. He replied. Later that night, she stood on the balcony again. Wind brushing through her hair. The stars looked different now, colder. She felt torn. Between her blood and her beliefs. Between the man her father wanted her to marry, and the man who had every right to hate her but didn't. A war had started before she was born. And she was only now realizing how deep it ran. This wasn't just a political marriage. It was a battlefield. In the shadows below the house, a small cloaked figure watched from the rooftops, a communicator in hand. Target is getting close to the truth, the voice whispered. Prepare phase 2. The glass shattered before anyone heard the scream. Ziraya didn't duck. She didn't need to. By the time the bullet reached her, Jace had already knocked her to the floor. It missed her by an inch. Chaos exploded around them. Lights flickering. Alarms screaming, guards shouting. The ballroom, once filled with the finest from 100 worlds, was now a storm of panic. Ziraya looked up from the polished floor, stunned, dress torn at the shoulder. A moment ago, she had been speaking to Earth's defense minister. Now, someone had tried to assassinate her, not Jace. The gala had started like any other political event. Elegant, fake, and full of cameras. Jace hated these things, but they were part of the diplomatic show, a symbol of unity. A symbol of peace. He had asked Ziraya to attend. Just for an hour, she had agreed, not for politics, but for him. She wore a silver gown, her hair braided, in the royal style of her people. She looked like a queen. He didn't tell her that, but he wanted to. The cameras had loved her, and someone else had been watching too, through a scope. After the attack, Jace rushed her to the extraction room. Earth agents swarmed the area, forming protective walls. He turned to her, gripping her arms tightly. Are you hurt? She shook her head, breath shallow. No, just shook. Jace stared at her. They weren't aiming for me, Ziraya nodded. I know. There was a pause, and then the realization hit them both. Someone wanted her dead. Not because she was married to a human, not because of her family's past, but because of who she was becoming. Back at the safe house, she paced the room while Jace spoke quietly to a high command officer through a private channel. She stopped when she heard her name. Ziraya Varric isn't just a symbol. She's the last living heir of the binding bloodline. If they kill her, the treaty collapses. Ziraya stepped into the room. What treaty? Jace ended the call and turned. His face was different now, tighter, darker. There's more to the marriage contract than just debt and politics. Ziraya folded her arms. I'm listening. Jace didn't hesitate this time. Decades ago, during the peace accords, a prophecy was written into law that unity between your bloodline and a human would seal the alliance forever. But only if it happened willingly. Ziraya's voice dropped. So I'm a living lock. Jace met her eyes. And someone is trying to break it. She felt cold. Not from fear, but from clarity. All her life she had been told she was nothing. More than a daughter of a dying house, a name with no power. A pawn. But now she understood. She was the key, and keys always had enemies. That night, as she stood near the window, she whispered, You knew this before I came, didn't you? Jace stood behind her. Not the whole story. Only after the second attack. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to feel trapped again. She turned to him slowly. Too late for that. But her words weren't sharp, just tired. Jace stepped closer. I'll protect you. Zira looked up at him. You keep saying that, but why? A long silence. Then, softly, he answered, because I don't care what the treaty says anymore. He stepped back, as if afraid of what he had just said aloud. Zira's heart beat louder than the city outside. In that moment, she didn't feel like a symbol, or a weapon, or a bride. She felt like a person someone had chosen, not out of duty, but something deeper. Far above, in a hidden satellite, an encrypted transmission was sent across the galaxy. Target survived. Phase 2 failed. The reply came cold and fast. Prepare for extraction. Kill order active. The key must not live. They put her on trial in the same chamber where peace was signed. Cold irony. Zira stood at the center of the intergalactic court, a glass tower floating above Earth's atmosphere, its walls completely transparent. From here, you could see the stars, the planets, and the warships silently waiting in orbit. Everyone was watching, all of them waiting to hear one thing. Would she betray her own bloodline, or defend the truth? Across the room, Jace watched silently. Not as her protector, not as her husband, but as the one man who had chosen her long before the galaxy cared who she was, 3 days earlier. Jace had been taken into custody. Political pressure, manufactured charges. Some said he manipulated her. Some said he seduced her for power. Zira knew better. He was the only person who had asked her, not what she could offer, but what she wanted. Now he was a prisoner. And she was the only one who could clear his name, but doing that meant revealing her family's darkest secret, the deal her father had made. The betrayal during the Starfall mission, the bribes. The bodies. Everything. Her name would be ashes, but maybe peace could live. The judge, a tall alien with glowing purple skin, leaned forward. Zira Varric, daughter of the Varric house, wife of Captain Jace Morgan. Do you understand the cost of what you are about to say? Zira raised her chin. I do. And do you swear under galactic oath that your testimony is given freely and not under coercion? She glanced at Jace. He looked at her the way he always did, steady, silent, waiting. She took a breath, and she spoke. She told them everything, the secret alliance, the sabotage, her family's silence while soldiers died, the truth hidden behind, her marriage contract, and how her people's fear of humans had led them to nearly destroy the one fragile chance at peace. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply told the truth, and when she finished, no one moved. Not the ministers, not the generals, not even the cameras, because for the first time, a daughter of power had destroyed her own throne. Not for revenge, but for something far more dangerous. Hope. Hours later, as Earth's council debated her fate, Zira sat alone in a holding chamber. The door opened. She looked up, expecting a guard. It was Jace. Free. Safe. She stood. They released you? He nodded. Because of you. She stepped closer. And what about me? He studied her. They offered to exile you, strip your title, cut your name from every record. She didn't flinch, I figured. Jace took her hand gently. I asked them for one thing. She looked up. A chance to leave, he said. Not as a captain, not as a symbol. Just a man. Zira's voice was quiet. And me? He smiled. That's your choice. A long silence passed between them. Then Zira said something she had never said before. To anyone, I want to go where I'm not a weapon, or a contract, or a key. Jace squeezed her hand. Then come with me. They left at dawn. No cameras, no guards. No flags, just 2 people on a small transport, flying away from a galaxy too eager to use them. But before they disappeared into the stars, Zira looked out the window one last time. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was running. She felt free. Far away, in the war. Rooms of those who once tried to control them. Alarms began to sound because the real threat wasn't a weapon. It was a woman who could no longer be bought, and a human who loved her anyway.